Okay, so let's just jump right in. Think about this for a second. Right now, inside your body, there's this silent, invisible war going on. It's happening constantly. And the hero of this story? It's your immune system. It's this incredibly sophisticated, tireless defense force that's working around the clock 24/7 just to keep you safe.
I mean, it's a pretty wild question when you stop and think about it, right? From the very air you're breathing to the food you eat, you're just constantly being exposed to millions of bacteria, viruses, fungi, all sorts of things. So how on earth do we survive all that? Well, let's break it down. So the whole strategy, the way your immune system works, it all comes down to one fundamental principle. And it's not about brute force, not at all. It's actually something way more sophisticated. It's all about intelligence and, recognition. Okay, so the concept here is actually pretty simple, but it's also kind of profound. Your immune cells, they're trained to recognize every single cell that belongs to you. That's what we call self. Literally anything else, it could be a virus, a splinter you got, even a harmful toxin, gets flagged as non-self. And that means it's an invader that needs to be dealt with. This, right here, is the absolute bedrock of all immunity.
So, to handle all these non-self threats, your body actually has two interconnected immune systems, not just one. A really good way to think about it is like this. You've got the first responders who show up at a scene immediately, and then you have the highly trained special ops team that comes in right after.
So over here on the left, we've got the innate system. These are your first responders. They are incredibly fast. I mean, they show up within hours, but their approach is really general. They'll attack pretty much anything that looks like non-self. Then on the right, you've got the adaptive system, the special ops. Now, they're slower to get going. It can take days, but they are laser-focused, highly specific. They target one particular enemy, and, this is the crucial part, they have a memory.
And this innate team, let me tell you, it's a real powerhouse crew. You've got macrophages, they're basically the big eaters, just gobbling up pathogens. Then there are neutrophils, think of them like the rapid response infantry. And you have natural killer cells, or NK cells, which are specialists at taking out your own body's cells that have been compromised, like, ones that are infected with a virus.
Now the adaptive team, they're much more specialized. You've got T cells, which are kind of like the field commanders directing the whole attack. And then you have B cells. These are the weapons factories, pumping out these highly specific things called antibodies that are designed to lock onto just one single type of invader.
And it's really important to get this. These aren't two separate forces. No way. It's one big coordinated army. The innate cells, especially these guys called dendritic cells, they're like the scouts. They're the key to the whole coordination. So after they run into an enemy, they actually travel to your lymph nodes and they show a piece of that invader to the adaptive system. It's like they're saying, hey, this is the bad guy. You need to build a specific weapon for this. Okay, so if you had to guess where most of this army is actually stationed, what would you say? You might think, your blood, maybe your lymph nodes, but the real headquarters, the command center for all of this, it's somewhere you'd probably never expect.
70%. Just let that number sink in for a second. 70. That's a massive majority. So what could that possibly be referring to when we're talking about our immune system?
Yep, that's it. Almost 70%. The single largest part of your entire immune system isn't your spleen, it's not your thymus, it's your gut. It's this massive network of immune cells called gut-associated lymphoid tissue, or GALT for short, and it lines your intestines. It basically acts as the #1 surveillance and defense hub for your entire body.
And honestly, it makes perfect sense when you really think about it. There's this quote from a paper way back in 1989 in a journal called Gut, and it just explains it perfectly. Your gut is the main highway between the outside world and, well, you. It's constantly sampling everything you bring into your body, which makes it the most logical place to station the majority of your defense force, right?
Okay, so if the gut is the main training ground, then what are the training tools? What's the equipment? Let's look at a really specific example here. These molecules called beta-glucans. So what are beta-glucans? Well, they're basically just complex carbohydrates or complex sugars. But here's the thing. Their structure is unique to things like fungi and yeast. You won't find them in human cells. And because of that, our innate immune system has evolved over thousands and thousands of years to instantly recognize them as a non-self pattern. And you find them in a lot of common sources. You have lanthanin, for example, which comes from shiitake mushrooms. Beta-immune comes from baker's yeast. Others come from oyster or maitake mushrooms. The key thing to remember here is that the source really does matter, because the specific structure of the beta-glucan can be slightly different depending on where it comes from.
So, what exactly happens when these beta-glucans, say, from a mushroom you just ate, enter this immune headquarters in your gut?
It's actually this beautiful four-step process. First, you eat them. But then, these molecules aren't just digested like everything else. Instead, they get actively picked up and transported by these specialized cells in your gut lining called M cells. They're taken into these little immune sampling zones called Peyer's patches. You can think of them as intelligence hubs. And there, they're met by macrophages and those dendritic cells we talked about, which immediately recognize their non-self structure and bam, they spring into action.
Now, this doesn't mean it causes a full-blown immune response every time. Not at all. A better way to think about it is like a constant training exercise. By regularly interacting with these totally harmless, non-self molecules, the innate immune cells in your gut are just kept in a state of readiness. They're primed, alert, and ready to go.
And look, this isn't just a cool theory. There's some really compelling evidence to back this up. For instance, we've got animal studies, specifically in mice, that showed when they were given yeast-derived beta-glucans, the activity of those pathogen-eating macrophage cells really ramped up. And what's really important here is that we've seen this in people, too. There have been human clinical trials with high-risk surgical patients, and they found that the patients who got beta-glucan had significantly fewer infections after their operations.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? It's that your gut isn't just for digestion. It's basically an educational institution for your immune system. It is the place where your body's first responders are constantly learning, constantly training, and getting prepared to keep you safe.
You know, this whole understanding just opens up a world of new possibilities. We're only just beginning to scratch the surface of this incredible connection between what we eat, the health of our gut, and the strength of our entire immune system. It really makes you wonder, right? If our gut is constantly training our immune system, what other secrets to our health are just waiting to be discovered there?